There are 300 known migrant camps in Oregon. 20 of them in Washington County are not well thought of by neighbors, state inspectors, nor migrants.
I have talked to many farm workers who have told me that they will not come back to Washington County, and I'm referring to families that would come up from the border states. They won't come up to Washington County anymore because the housing is so bad.
The main problem here is that the migrant camps are old, often dirty and cold. Sometimes heating or cooking is over an open flame. Maintenance is up to the camp operator.
It's completely impossible for the farmer to do anything. He's just barely, I know the way we are, we barely exist from one year to the next, and we can't improve anything.
Once in a great while, the migrant camps are visited by a state inspector. But the common problems persist year after year.
We've got sewage problems, water problems, basic garbage and refuse problems. Then we look at the control of insects and rodents, and if camps are in, usually all of those conditions will aid to having rats or mice or other types of vectors, which can cause the transmission of disease.
This day, the only inspector assigned to migrant camps is touring the operation of farmer Jerry Tankersley. We are not allowed to take pictures on the property. State regulations spell out sanitation rules. The inspector wrote Tankersley a citation because of privies that were overfilled with sewage and some left open, allowing flies to commute from the outhouse to the dwellings. But some people who have worked with migrant problems for years say the inspections do no good.
I'm not convinced they will ever work to bring the housing up to the standard that is set.
DeETTA Burrows heads up health enforcement in the State Accident Prevention Division.
Obviously, the aesthetics of a camp don't have to look like our own homes in that kind of condition. However, the bathroom conditions, shower facilities should be such that you wouldn't mind living there or using them.
The reason even minimal standards aren't met at times may be due to infrequent inspections. A camp usually won't be checked any more often than once every 2 or 3 years.
And so a correction that occurs today, 2 days later or 3 days later, if the toilet's back up or facilities aren't kept clean, you can be back into the same conditions.
Case in point, another camp inspected earlier this year, operated by Ron Tankersley. He lives in this home next to the labor camp, but was cited for allowing chemical toilets next to his place to overflow and for deteriorating floors and cabins.
There's no difference. We all live and I think we eat about the same food. I've eaten enough them damn tacos to kill me.
The inspector did not check to see if these were repeat violations from previous years, did not check to see if there were enough toilets and washrooms available, and did not return to see that the corrections were made. When we visited the camp, the toilets were still overfilled, waste covered the floor. One occupant, who had moved away from another Tankersley camp, had to clean out this cabin from the previous resident, a job that is supposed to be done by the camp operator.
Actually, we told them that we want to move down here on account of, up there they're just giving all kinds of trouble. People just knocking your electric out, they ain't much electric. And they use up all the hot water. Time when you get in, you ain't got no water to wash off or nothing.
Tankersley simply says, quote, "These people are just dirty, let's face it."
If you're seeing conditions like that, some of these we should be getting back to do a follow-up right away.
In the meantime, people are getting sick. When they do, many of them have to come here to the Virginia Garcia Clinic in Cornelius, a medical center for the needy.
A lot of times these farm workers are forced to eat in that same space where they're living, and it's just not adequate. From a health point of view, it's not always adequate.
So if migrants don't want to live in camps, where do they go? Someday, this could be the answer to part of the migrant housing problem. This vacant land in Forest Grove is the site of a future apartment complex for migrants, if. The problem is, Forest Grove voters passed a ballot measure banning apartments, which are built with federal dollars. The migrant housing project here has secured a $5 million federal loan. Now the whole thing is tied up in court and before 2 state agencies, all trying to decide if the Forest Grove voters did the right thing.
I think people have an image of migrant housing, a lot of it because of the reports that folks like you have done, and that's what they think is going to be moving in next door. It's not going to be anything like that. Farmer's Home would not get involved with placing that next door to someone. This is going to look like any other apartment complex.
It will be 6 months before the first state agency issues its decision on the issue. Meanwhile, time is running out on the federal loans, and the migrants who are living in camps are staying there under some degree of fear and without several freedoms. We'll have more on that in tomorrow's report. In Forest Grove, Randy Ripplinger, Channel 2 News.